Welcome to, we're doing a series on excellence in ministry. And so if you are here for excellence in ministry, you are in the right spot.
If you don't want to be excellent, there's 2 other workshops that you can find your way to. They haven't started yet, but we're going to start on that.
It's going to be good. So, youth and kids ministry is more than just watching kids, right? It's more than managing a program. It's important, okay? And so when we're talking about excellence in ministry, it's passion for both Joel and myself. And the crazy thing is, and this never ceases to surprise me, the kids in your ministry don't care if you're paid or you're not paid. The kids in your ministry don't care if you serve once a month or you serve every service. The kids in your ministry, the students, the babies, they're there to be ministered by you. And so our ability to be excellent in what we do is important, because one thing I do know is there are families in your community that need Jesus. And so it's important that when we do ministry, we're excellent at it. So let's pray. Jesus, thank you for the opportunity to talk more about being excellent in ministry today. I pray that you would help Joel and I to be clear in what we say, and God, that our heart is that people would take one step this next week at trying to improve what they're doing in ministry. Help us to yield to your Spirit and guide us as we do that. In your name we pray. Amen. My name's Ben Grzinski. I'm the children's pastor at Bethel Church in Medford. I am married. My wife is not here. Her name is Stephanie. And we have 4 kids. Jude, Rowan, Harper, and Sawyer. And they are 7, 5, 3, and 1. And that is it. We're having no more kids. And I am accompanied by the talented, elusive, and eccentric pastor, senior pastor, Joel Morris.
Elusive and eccentric. I'm working on those ones. Wispy. All right. So, my wife, Kimberly's over here, and one of my sons, Andy, here. Johnny's out there probably somewhere. 2 boys, they are 9 and 11. I'm the lead pastor of Lakeview Assembly of God. A lot of people don't know where Lakeview is, and we are about 100 miles east of Klamath Falls. It's the end of the road. There's about 200-300 miles of nothing after us before we get to Idaho. So we serve in a rural context, 2,300 people in our town. We have a county the size of Israel and about 5,000 people. So that's where I serve. We've been there almost 5 years. We're going to be talking about excellence in ministry. Nobody has this all figured out, but we want to do better. And I assume that since you're here, you want to do better in ministry. And so we're going to be looking at how we can tighten things up, avoid crisis, and get things done. So that's our topic today. And our first point that we want to talk about is having an excellent mindset, starting with how we think about things. So Ben, why don't you start us off with the first point, drop the attitude.
Yeah. So we're talking about excellent mindset. The first thing Joe and I decided to mention was just, we got to drop the attitude sometimes. And I want to take that in kind of a specific way. There is one attitude that I have found in a lot of churches, a lot of ministries, and it is this belief that either because your church is small or your church is large, that should affect your ability to be excellent. For some reason we connect them. It's like, oh man, my church, it's so small. I can't expect my leaders to read the lesson before they do it. I mean, that'd be crazy, right? Or, man, my church is so big, there's no way we could follow up with all the students at our church. This thought that because of the size of your church affects your ability to be excellent. And I have to tell you, there's no correlation. Yeah. There are excellent people who are doing excellent ministries in churches in ministries of 5 kids and ministries of 500 kids. It really is more about your approach to ministry. And if you're making excuses because of the size of your church, that you see something out there and you're like, oh, that would be so great for us, but we're this size, so that won't work. That is an attitude that you need to drop. That's something you need to get out. And the second thing I wanted to point out, just two quick things, is This one is a little harder to swallow, but a mentor of mine often said this to me, talking about ministry, but ministry, at times, is an awful lot like work. I know, it's crazy, right? But ministry at times, it can be an awful lot like work. You don't always feel like making a phone call. You don't always feel like our worship pastor just this week received a phone call telling him, hey, you need to kick it up a notch, man. The worship's just not hitting, you know. We don't always feel like dealing with things that come up. You may not feel like at times, man, I don't really want to review this lesson, or I don't want to look over this again. But the truth is, if you want to be excellent, if you want to do ministry that is going to make a difference in kids' lives, it's going to look like work, probably way more than you think. And it's not to say it's not going to be rewarding, but I dare say it may not be fun. A lot of ministry is not fun. A lot of ministry takes time and hard work that you have to put in. And that's not a matter of perspective. I'm just trying to shoot it to you straight. Sometimes ministry really does look like work. And you got to know that going in and be prepared to do some of that difficult stuff.
The attitude is so important in ministry. I was thinking back in Bible college. I wasn't the greatest guitarist. I went to school for music, but I wasn't the greatest guitarist when I showed up. But I would practice 2+ hours a day, every single day, and my guitar teacher knew that. And so when they were looking at replacing the guitarist who was graduating for the premier worship team for our Bible college, he went to the guitar teacher, the chair of the department, and said, who should I pick from the guitar majors? And he said, well, Joel's not the greatest guitarist, but he's the most, consistent, dependable, and has the greatest attitude, so I think you should talk to him. And so I was walking down the hall of the school, and the chair of the music department came up to me and said, would you be our guitarist next year, in your sophomore year, for usually a position that wasn't taken until your junior or senior year? And so I was able to do that. We did a bunch of different stuff, but it was not because of the skill, but because of the attitude. And now as a lead pastor, I look at, if I'm going to hire somebody, I want a certain level of skill, but I know that the skill will come, but the attitude is a lot harder to work on than the skill. And so skill is something that we grow in, but attitude is something that could be difficult with somebody for their life. And so I want to encourage you to have a great attitude when you approach ministry. Ministry demands that we do things we don't like, but are important. One last quick story and we'll move on to the next one. Just this spring, or maybe it was this fall, I noticed on one of the homes that we own at the church that there was a big puddle and it didn't go away next to the garage. And I couldn't figure out where the water was coming from, and so we decided to look into it a little bit, and I realized that one of the outside hydrants was leaking. Now the whole corner of the house sat on this ground, and it's lake mud, and I knew that if I let that go, the whole garage was going to start to sink. And so we didn't have time to call a plumber, because when we dug it all up, we discovered we have a leak, and it got worse when we dug it up. So I put on my mechanic's uniform and climbed under the house and did all the plumbing work. And you think to yourself, I didn't go into ministry to get in a crawl space as a lead pastor to fix the plumbing. Guess what? That's what a lot of people end up doing in ministry. And whether it's getting under a house or calling someone you don't want to have that conversation with, if your attitude is that of Christ Jesus, who is willing to go to the cross to do what needed to be done, our attitude should at least reflect something close to that. So start there and have the right attitude when it comes to ministry. We will be doing things we don't like, but they are important. The next one is evaluation. Always ask how something can be better. So Ben, what do you do for evaluation?
Yeah, this is a big one. It's kind of a mindset in itself. I was just watching a documentary about Disneyland, and I don't know if you guys love or hate Disneyland, but it was interesting. One of the things they said is when Walt Disney had kind of put it together, his plan was that it would never be the same park, that they would always be innovating, always changing the rides. And of course, some of these rides have become classic rides and they've stayed for all this time. But change is not your enemy, okay? Change is necessary for growth. It's something that you have to come mentally get in that mindset to say, you know what? I need to change to grow. Change should be a constant part of my ministry. And we're not saying that you should go home this week and make the most drastic change that's going to get you fired or get you kicked out of your ministry. I'm not saying you should necessarily do that. But when it comes to evaluation, you need to ask the question, how can this be better? What can we do? There's a guy I know, his name is Jim Weidman, and he would say he would have a degree in a management by walking around. And he was a children's pastor who just walked around and saw things and then made the changes on Monday. Made the things that he wanted to see better, made them better. And it's so critical. One of the things that bums me out, really bums me out, is when I see a problem on a Sunday or a Wednesday night, and then the next time I think about it is when I see it happen again on the next Sunday. And I'm like, oh man, I care about this ministry, but this one thing, it slipped my mind. It's like a Sunday brain, and so many things coming. So I wanted to throw out a quick example of something you could use. For me, I found it just to have a little notebook in your back pocket. If you don't wear pockets, I mean, if you got a dress, I don't know, maybe put it in your shoe or make it really small, or you can find a way. But this works great for me, and man, it makes a difference to write it down. Now, however, if this gets thrown on the bottom of my car and Monday rolls through, and then all of a sudden it's Sunday again, I'm in that same spot of saying, dang it, we didn't do this check-in thing right. And so what a difference when you see something, get a degree of management by walking around and just make a note on that. Because when you begin to ask how can you make things better, your ministry is going to grow. It's going to grow. And of course, not only numerically, but in the quality that you're able to put out, it will become an excellent ministry. And some things need to change that are big, but there are so many small things that when you're paying attention and looking, you'll see them. And you can make those changes, and it'll be a huge help. Yeah.
And part of the reason this is under mindset is because if you're not willing to evaluate, then you have a security problem with yourself. And this is one of the most dangerous things to you in ministry is your own insecurities. Does anybody have insecurities? And you're like, no. Yeah, we all have them, don't we? We have insecurities. And we know that we're up front. We know that people look at us, and we have to be in a place where we come from a place of authority. But obviously we have insecurities. All the disciples had insecurities. I don't know if you could say that Jesus had insecurities, but I'll tell you what question he did ask his disciples, and everybody left his ministry. Do you want to leave too? You remember that scripture? Now, I don't know if Jesus was insecure, but it was a question. Hey, I just talked about people eating my body and drinking my blood. That's pretty gross. And a bunch of people left. To my disciples, do you want to leave too? And yet, it's from that everything grew back into what it became in the church. But sometimes you hit those low points, and we have to be willing to accept the comments and the criticism. I remember a lady in our church had an idea or something, and she was really scared to tell it to me. And I was asking her why. She didn't want me to feel bad. I said, listen, I can't do a thing about it if I don't know. And so we want to create a culture in our churches, in our ministries, where we are always trying to improve something. So whether you're on a team or lead a team, try to develop that culture by asking questions. And if you're the person in charge and you're asking a question, that just lowers defenses. Hey, what could we do better next time? What went well? What could we improve? When you think of something like you've got a notebook, everybody has a phone, that just jot it down, do something about it, because we can always improve those things. And that is one of the ways that we avoid crisis. Because if you delay enough improvements for long enough, you'll end up to where you have a crisis, and then you have to make a major change. And that makes it much more difficult than if you made a lot of minor changes along the way. So a real quick example, go to the next one. But our church needed a ton of remodeling. And so what we didn't do was take out $75,000 from the bank, hire a contractor, and get it all done in one time. We did a little bit here, a little bit there. I would do something as stupid as get up on a Sunday morning and say, hey, guess what? We bought an attachment for the weed whacker, and look what the edger did to the sidewalk. Show a picture of before and after. Yay, that's great. I mean, We spent $60 and it was nothing really, but you know what? When you start doing that every single week, your people start to get an idea of, oh, we're going somewhere. Now, who doesn't want to be a part of something that's going somewhere? And whether it's a weed whacker or some new curriculum or something that you're doing, if you're always trying to improve something, then pretty soon your people start to get that. And then what's the most exciting is the people that you're leading start to come up with those things themselves. And when you're sitting there with a team member who says, hey, I got an idea. Or we were doing this and I was thinking how we could make it better and I came up with this thing. What do you think? And now that culture has spread beyond you. So that's how we work at evaluation, just constantly trying to make things better. Let's go to the next topic, excellence in time and tasks. We all have so much time. It's always limited. You never have enough. You all have so much to do. There's never ending to-do lists. So how do we do well with the time that we have and the stuff on our plate? Ben, let's talk about the calendar. You're going to take on the calendar.
Yeah. I told you something I'm bummed at when I make a mistake twice. I do feel bummed about that. To tell you something I'm passionate about, your calendar. Oh, baby. We start talking about your calendar, I'm like, yeah, I'm in. Let's do this. Because you don't think about it, but your greatest resource is not your financial budget in ministry. It is your time. The literal time you get to spend is the greatest resource you have. And so many of us have this sort of like repeat thing where we show up at work or you're in there and you have no plan and you just start reacting to the day. So like, you ever get that feeling where you get to the end of the day and you're exhausted? You're like, oh, I've been running all day, but then when you really think about all the stuff you were trying to push forward, you didn't push any of it forward because you were just putting out all these small fires. You basically set yourself up to say, I'm going to be in a reaction-based scheduling task list. That whatever feels most important at the moment, that's what I'm going to hit first. And that sometimes feels great because you're able to get some things that are stressful off your plate. But the problem is, the things that you react to may not actually be the most important things you need to do. We talked this morning about teaching and how easy it is when we're doing admin, we're doing all stuff to push teaching to the back burner. That's a calendar issue. You probably got into a situation where you didn't plan time to prep for a lesson, and so it just got pushed back to, honestly, probably expertise or experience. You thought, I've done this. Man, experience can be such a bad thing in ministry. Because when you stop stressing about a lesson, like, oh, I got that. I can do a lesson. You stop prepping at times, right? And it becomes a big problem. So, I wanted to hit some key points here. When I do a calendar, the first point, and it is the most important to me, and you don't have to follow this, but you should. It's really good advice. You should have one calendar, okay? For me, that has to be digital because I have to be able to share that with my family. I have to be able to share that with others. If it's on the wall for you, that's fine. But as soon as you're running a calendar in your checkbook and a calendar at home on the wall and a calendar on your computer, the chances of you somehow magically aligning all of those things is next to impossible. All right, so planning your time. Number one, the first thing, this is just me, the first thing I do is I plan my family recurring events. Priority, which unfortunately we're not going to have a ton of time to talk about today. But if you want to talk about priorities, I would love to talk to you about that. Family is my number one priority. So if my son has karate every Thursday, I'm putting that on my calendar first. I'm going to make sure we hit that. My next thing is what are my big family events and my own personal appointments. I want to make sure those are on my calendar. Again, I use that right on my phone. So I have all my events on there, all my recurring things. My third thing are my recurring appointments. If I know I have a staff meeting at this time every day, boom. Or hopefully not every day, every week.
How do you get
Oh man, I'm gonna stress myself out. Yes, I put it down. Tuesdays, boom, staff meeting. Then I have recurring tasks, and this I think is what most people don't calendar. If I want to get the most of my Monday, I'd better sit down before I do anything else on that Monday and say, okay, what do I want to get done? What are these recurring tasks? I know I'm going to go through my notebook checklist Monday first thing. That's going to be a half-hour work. Whether it takes me that long or not, I'm going to work on it for a half hour. I know I need to start prepping for my Wednesday lessons. I'm going to start that on Monday. I'm going to start to schedule in blocks of time for tasks. And then my last thing is, what are my one-time meetings and appointments? I know I need to do a counseling session. I know my son has a special thing. I'm going to try to make sure I get all of those one-time things on my calendar. But the truth is, once you start doing that, and it's all in one place, you're kind of being ruled by your phone, which may be like a sci-fi, like what people thought would happen like 20 years ago. But in a sense, it's awesome because my mind then is free to dream and think, and I don't have to worry about getting everything done because I've already spent the time in my calendar to make sure it's reminding me how to do it. Now, I have 2 tips. One is for Gold Star. If you want a Gold Star, like you're like a high achiever, once you plan out a literal week, and you're saying, this is what I want to do in this week, and maybe you're doing that at the beginning of every day, or maybe you're starting on Sunday, planning your entire week out, go back. And I know that stressed some of you out, but go back after that week and evaluate how you spent your time. That's next level. We'll talk about this in session 2. But that's next level. If you go back and evaluate truth. And then the one thing I'll also point out is watch out for time wasters. That's what makes evaluation so important. You could see like, oh man, I was on YouTube for 3 hours on Tuesday. I know that clip that I was trying to get was important, but maybe it's not that important. Or Facebook, social media, like what are the time wasters in your schedule that you wanted to spend time with your family, but when you got home you started doing this and lost track of time?
It's good. One of the things you said about calendaring is that you want to be stress-free. And that's really the goal, is that your calendar works for you, not the other way around. And there's really 2 ways to approach your calendar, and this is going to transition us into the getting things done, the next topic. But what do you do with that space? You have the stuff that's non-negotiable. I have to be at this meeting. I have this thing going on, those kinds of things. What do you do with all that blank space? Early on in my ministry, I calendared everything. I calendared when I wanted to do every single task. The problem with that is then you open up your calendar and you see tons of colors and all of your time is scheduled, and it becomes very difficult to find out when you actually do have to have a meeting, when you have to be somewhere, and then you end up playing the catch-up game. Who's ever played the catch-up game on your stuff? Yeah? And yeah, my wife knows. She's sitting there nodding more than anybody. And the catch-up game is this. You didn't get it all done. And now you have to go back, and you're spending all this time managing your management tools. You don't want to be doing that. You don't want to be having to forward stuff constantly. And you're taking that thing you scheduled on Tuesday, it didn't happen, so then you're grabbing it and moving it to the next day, and the next day, and the next day. So I think it was Brian, Pastor Brian told me, because Brian does an incredible job. You want to talk to somebody who can get things done. Yeah. I don't know how many events he does in a year, but I was a district youth director for a little while for another organization, and I only had like a third of what Brian does in a year, and I was overwhelmed. I can't believe how much he does. So I went to Brian, and this is what you should do. Find somebody who's really good at something that you want to be better at, and go talk to him. I called up Brian, I said, Brian, how do you get all this stuff done? And I think it was him who told me about the Getting Things Done method. David Allen pioneered this a number of years ago, but the goal is to have a stress-free life. And so that blank space, that all the stuff I've got to get done in a day, maybe I've got 4 hours of time to work on whatever, I believe this is the best task management system out there because it flips it on its head. Most task management systems start with your priorities, and then you're going down from there until you finally get to the actual stuff that you do. This system flips it upside down, and it starts with all the stuff you have to do. And by going through that and working through all the next actions that you have to complete, you find that you eventually, when you work the system, get yourself to where you don't have that stress. And you know what happens to your mind when you don't have stress and you're not thinking about the very next thing you have to do? You start to dream again. You start to have vision. And all of the purpose of these kinds of systems for you to think and dream and be stress-free so that you can have vision from the Lord and direction and kind of that higher level thinking we talk about, that happens when your mind is clear of the clutter. But otherwise, you're going to just be sitting there. You ever sit there and be watching a show or on your phone or something, and all of a sudden something from like 3 weeks ago pops in your head, and you're like, oh, I got to do that. You ever been there? The reason that happens is because you don't have a system to put that in so that you don't have to worry about it again. And your mind will bring things that are not important to you at the time to your recollection when you aren't in a position to take care of it because you don't have it filed somewhere. And so this has been researched and looked at heavily, but what happens with our minds is our minds do not determine what has extreme value and what has very low value. So picking up the dog food to our minds, if that's unfinished, has the same priority level as plan next sermon series. And so what'll happen is when you should be planning your next sermon series, guess what your mind does? You need to go pick up the dog food. So what I want to encourage you to do is have a system. This is just an idea for you. You don't have to use this, but if you're interested in this, you can download the book. I'm going to just walk you through this real fast. Go back to the first one, if you would, of that. The first thing you do is you collect all the stuff. And it says there on the left, it's kind of hard to read, but mind sweep. And the idea of this is everything on your mind you can possibly think of, whether great or small, you collect. And then the next one says move closer, and what you're going to do is you're going to write down all that stuff on a piece of paper. And you have an inbox, and it sits there. So you want to collect everything you have to do in your life, and you can't necessarily bring, like, say you have to fix a TV. You're not going to bring the TV in your office and stick it in your inbox. You're going to get a piece of paper and write fix the TV. And you're going to put that as one sheet. And you're going to collect everything you have, put it all in it. Go to the next one. Then you are going to process it. You see that on the top left, 300 to 400 times a day, and you think, wow, that's a lot. It's actually, when you're doing it split second, it goes very fast. All right, 10 to 40 seconds each, you're going to get faster. Your goal is not to do, but to process those things. You're going to work from the top down, one thing at a time. It doesn't matter its importance level. You're going to process what you have to do, one thing at a time. You never put that thing back in your inbox, and your goal should be to be empty every single day. And then it goes down from there on what you do with stuff. Some things you're just going to throw away. Maybe you get something in the mail and you want to keep it as a reference. You got to have a reference place to file that. If you don't file that, it'll end up on your desk forever. You might have something that's a someday maybe. I'm not sure about this. Maybe I'll act on it. Create a folder that's a someday maybe, whether it's digital or a physical folder in a file cabinet. Stick those items there and then review it maybe once a week. And then the tickler file. This is really awesome, okay? I use this. I just am starting to implement a lot of other things in this, but the tickler file is this. You have 12 folders, one for every month. Then you have 31 folders, one for every day. And the way you set up the file cabinet, it takes up about half a drawer, is you put all of the days of the month behind that for the current month. And then every day, as you go through a day, you take that folder, you empty the contents, you process it, you put it back for the next month. So it rotates all year long. Here's how you use that practically. I get tons of missionary letters. I get a letter and I say, I'm going to do this one for this Sunday 3 weeks from now. I'll put it in the folder on that day that I'm going to actually process that. Or what happened a few months ago, I had to send in a form for my IRA to withdraw a certain amount of money in this year. So I put it in January 1st folder. And when January 1st came, I pulled that folder out, I opened it up, and there was I'd already done the work. I filled out the form, I put it in the envelope, I stamped the envelope, it was ready to put in the mail, but it couldn't be put in until January 1st. So it would go in the right tax year. Pull out the folder, all the work's done, seal the envelope, put it in the post office, and there it goes. That's the tickler file. It's really powerful if you want to be able to calendar paperwork so that you then pull out that folder on the day that you need it and you process that stuff. That's one of the biggest challenges that I had in the office in ministry is, what do I do with these physical things when they have a time thing related to it? And if you like to go digital, you can scan it and you can put it in a digital tickler file. But this is really powerful. Okay, I want to spend a little bit of time on that because it's very, very helpful. And then you have other things that have in your life you have a plan for, and a process and a purpose. And you'll need several different things like a file cabinet, a computer hard drive. There's some other stuff too. Go ahead and go to the next one. We'll wrap this up. Then you review your stuff every day. There's a few things you review every single week. And you know what happens as you begin to work, how you get things taken care of is your mind starts to be freed up to dream, to plan, to have vision, and all of that kind of stuff. So this is a whole task management system. And our goal today is not to give you everything, because there's no way to do that in 5 to 10 minutes. But if any of this is of interest to you, download the book, read it, and go through the stuff. This is all part of one-page document that you get for free as a PDF on getting things done, and you can implement that in your life. So we spent a little bit of time on that. We're going to go to the last stuff, and then if there's time left, we'll have questions. Ben, let's talk about people. That was time and tasks, but we're in ministry. And so all of the stuff that we do is tied to people. So would you tell us what you do with professionalism and how you handle people?
Yeah, talking about people, the topic, we were kind of thinking about ministry, working in a ministry environment. I'm even volunteering in that. And so this topic of professionalism came up. And so just a couple of things. These are like, you may have, and I hope this isn't the case, but you may have like zero aspirations of being a great leader. I mean, you're here, so I kind of hope you do. But one of the things you'll notice when you see great leaders is how well they can respond to things that are on their plate. And so what I'm talking about is phone calls. Now, I've been guilty of this before. I've missed a phone call. I've never responded. But when you get a phone call, respond right away. When you get an email, respond right away. It's like a professional thing, but in the end, you're not trying to just look great. You're thinking of it as, how would I want to be treated? If I were reaching out to somebody, maybe I needed help in ministry, or maybe I needed a deadline or something, how would I respond? And very honestly, your response, maybe, hey, just wanted to touch base with you today. I got your message. I don't have space right now on my plate. I'm looking at my calendar. We need to reschedule a time to talk because this is important to me and I'd like to give you some time. Having that professionalism to get back to people right away. I can already tell you, it's like a secret sauce. If you just did that, you would already be a step up, especially dealing with these millennials. Am I right? Right? You will already be so far ahead of all of your peers if you just did that one thing, saying, hey, if somebody gets a hold of me, I'm going to get back to them right away. If I can't deal with it, I'm still going to get back to them and help them. And then this one I know is, somehow it seems more like a philosophical issue, but be on time, right? Be on time. I think our pastor, he quoted some lady who said this, I don't remember, but it was that to be 10 minutes early would be to be early. To be 5 minutes early is to be on time. If you show up on time, then you're like late. And then to actually show up late is inexcusable. Now, I know not everybody looks at it that harshly, but when the meeting is at 1, again, such a simple thing. If you want to stand above your peers, if you want to be that person that people want to resource more ministry to, show up on time. Make it in your schedule. And if you are chronically late, I can guarantee you it is impacting your effectiveness as a leader. It really is. Now, I'm not going to harp too much on it because I love you. I love you guys. But if you're showing up late, it is affecting your leadership.
It's interesting in this technology age we live in, but if you don't respond to someone's text right away, what do? Did you get my text? But yet with phone calls, it seems like, oh, I got a call and a voicemail. I'll get to that in a day or 2, 3. We should be people who respond quickly, and you do have that in your phone. I didn't realize this, but I just am teaching a Financial Peace University class, and I never did put everybody's number in, and I went to text them all, hey, we're back on this week, we took Valentine's Day off. And I realized I had every single person's number, cell phone number, in my cell phone for that class already, except for one. And so I was texting them all of that information, and I came away from that thinking, wow, this really is the day that we live in, the day and age that we live in. But if somebody calls you and you can't get to it right then, text them back and say, I got your voicemail, I'm processing it, or I can't get to calling you back right now, I really want to spend time. Give them, communicate. That's really the biggest thing of all of this. And here's what I think, just a takeaway from a philosophical perspective. You work so hard to get those responses that to then put them on the shelf, I don't, think about the time and money you spend and energy to do an outreach. And this is what drove me nuts. As a staff pastor at a different church, we do all these events all year long. And I'd always be the one in the room saying, what's the follow-up plan? Follow-up? We don't follow up, we do the next event. And I was like, well, what are we doing the events for? I mean, what's the point of getting 300 new people in your church if you never follow up with them? And what happened was we did some research. We had 17 brand new people come to our church every single Sunday on average in a year. And our church was shrinking. Because we didn't follow up. You know what I did in my youth ministry? I was a youth pastor at the time. You probably don't do this because your senior pastor won't love you. But I went to staff meeting that January and said, well, I heard from the Lord and I've canceled all evangelistic events this year. Said, I've been praying about this, and I believe if we just do our weekly ministry with excellence and follow up with the people God brings us, we'll see a change. We went from 30 students to 90 students in 3 months. Just from following up. No outreach at all. I was like, wow, that worked. What if we did this in the whole church? But it didn't work because they didn't listen. So I quit, and now I'm a lead pastor. Follow up with people. You already talked about being on time for appointments. I won't cover that. Keeping people informed along the way. Give them regular updates. People want to know what's going on. And the last one, what your lead pastor wants from you, communication. Communication. I think most people understand life happens, but when you don't know, it's a problem. You know, if I'm waiting for someone to come to an event and they're a key person and I don't know if they're on their way, in the car, at home, on the toilet, you know what I mean? Like, what's going on? I need to know where you are. Then you get stressed out, worried, and things fall apart. So communicate, over-communicate. Nobody is frustrated by that. Let's do the last one, and we'll have a few minutes for some question and answer. Little things that matter. Appreciation, thank you notes, postcards, phone calls, prayer lists, ways to show that you care. Ben, what do you want to say about that?
Yeah, we'd love to get to your questions. So I'll just say this. I'm a task-oriented person, and so it is very easy for me to think, oh man, I got to get these things done. There are few tasks in life, and very few in ministry, that are uninterruptible. And so when I'm talking about doing the little things, you got to slow down, task-oriented person, and I'm talking to myself. You got to slow down on Sundays. You got to slow down on Wednesdays and realize quite possibly the most important thing you're going to do is to do something small for a leader, for a child, for a parent, and extend that kind of greeting conversation and be interrupted. You should be looking for God to interrupt what you think you got to get done. Because God has some ministry there in those interruptions. And it's difficult if you're looking to just get things done. You'll miss them because you got to make these copies. Now, granted, if you calendared and you scheduled it all, then you would be like, oh, Lord, interrupt me because I'm just standing here. But it really is something I just from my own life, I've had to work on constantly when I see myself getting busy on a ministry day, that I got to remind myself, it's not a if. God has something for me today, and I'm just going to be looking for that interruption. I'm going to take it because it's huge.
I'll say 2 minutes worth, and we'll have 5 minutes for response. We wanted a little more time, but lunch took a little bit longer for most people. So it's the little things that matter. I do a couple of things that really help when it comes to people. I am also a task-driven type of person. I think a lot of people in ministry are, but then there's people that are not. And what you have to do is know what your strengths are and use those, and make sure your weaknesses aren't so weak that they become a problem. But what I've done is take the way that I think in task-driven kind of mentality and use that to be people-oriented. So the tools I use, I have my phone, it's over there charging, but what I use my phone for is my prayer list is a to-do. It's on my to-do list as a daily thing. And on that prayer list is in my notes, I have all of the prayer lists for the people in the church when they write a prayer card. It goes in there right away. We pray for those every day. Here's what that does. When you pray for somebody long enough, you want to know what's happening with that prayer request, right? So you call them up, you text them, you do something to follow up. You see them in church. When you've been praying for somebody for 2 weeks solid and then they're in church and you see them, you're like, oh, hey, I've been praying for you every day. Guess what? You're not lying. Yeah. I think one of the biggest lies in ministry is, oh, I'm praying for you. No, you're not. I won't tell someone I'm praying for them if I'm not praying for them. So let's not do that to people. Why? Because then they might come to you and say, I don't know what's going on. You're praying for me and nothing's changing.